Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Verse by Verse Bible Podcast. My name is Jonathan Cooper, and I'm really glad you guys are here. I am glad that some of you guys have been tuning in, listening, or watching this wherever you guys have found it. It's going to be up on YouTube, Spotify, and hopefully anywhere else that I can upload podcast. So wherever you guys have found this at, I am glad that you guys have found it. I pray that it has been helpful. I pray that it has been informative and a blessing and encouraging, and been able to help you guys in your own walk with God and your own understanding of the word and in all of the things related to that, and that any of the topics we have covered. I thank God that I hope that it has been helpful to you guys. So today we're going to be a little random again. I have some planned out things that God has given me and some things I just read in the word and decide I'm going to talk about this. I'm just going to turn on the camera and talk. And that's what today is. And today we're going to start in Proverbs. So we're going to start in Proverbs chapter 1 and just go until I think God says we should stop, because there's a lot of interesting things that I picked up from this, reading this earlier this day. So I'm just going to start in Proverbs 1, verse 1. This is from the ESV Bible too. So it says, "The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king in Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth." So I think these first four verses are what Solomon is hoping that all of his writings in this book can do for somebody. This is the wisdom that God gave him. You read Old Testament books, God told Solomon to ask for whatever it is that he wanted when he first became king over Israel after his father David. And Solomon asked God for the wisdom to lead the people and to navigate the people in their now possession of the promised land at that time. And that had him gain favor with God by asking for wisdom to lead his people instead of asking for material type of things. So this is a lot of the wisdom in Proverbs that God had given to Solomon. And some people say that Solomon was the wisest person to live before Jesus was born. So this is a lot of his writings, and this is the purpose of him writing Proverbs. The purpose is to understand, to know wisdom and instruction, and to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. So these are the things that he hopes his writings can do for whoever reads them. And so let's just keep going. This is verse 5 that says, "Let the wise hear and increase learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance." So he's also saying that people who already have some level of education or some level of learning or knowledge can also hear what he's saying, and they will gain more instruction. And he says, this is what the wise do. They hear and increase learning. So he's pointing to the fact that even if we have wisdom from God or a worldly wisdom from education or life experience, that if we were also wise, we would keep learning and keep seeking some kind of understanding from both God and the worldly things that are beneficial to understand and learn. This is what Solomon is saying here. Let the wise hear and increase learning. The one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. This is what he says the wise can do or will do or should do. Understand proverbs and their sayings, the words of the wise, hearing from other people their wisdom, and to understand their sayings. Then he says in verse 7, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." So after he says who he is hoping this is for, so that's pretty much what verse 1 through 6 is. He's saying this is who this is for. He's saying that's what the purpose of his writings is for. And then he says, for all this wisdom and instruction and understanding and all this stuff, the beginning of all of that is the fear of the Lord, which basically is saying the respect of God to honor what he says, to do things knowing that his sight is on us, to obey his commandments, to act in basically a respectful manner towards what he has set up, towards what he has spoken, towards any commands that he has given. He says all this is the beginning of knowledge, to fear the Lord, to respect God, to walk in his ways. And then he says, fools despise wisdom and instruction. So he's saying that a foolish person is going to despise, well, number one, they're going to despise the fear of the Lord, because that is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. And so he's basically saying to reject the fear of the Lord already puts you in a foolish mindset. To reject God and to reject the knowledge of God and the respect for God already puts us in a deficit, in a lower place, in a negative place. It puts us in a bad position, because now we despise wisdom, we despise instruction, and we aren't able to operate in the ways that we are supposed to go in this life, whether we believe in God or not. If we despise wisdom, if we reject the Lord, we're going to despise wisdom and instruction. So we're already going to be at a disadvantage for not wanting to follow and hear the wisdom of God. That's why he says up in 5, again, in 5, he says, let the wise hear and increase learning. And then it says in 7 that fools will despise wisdom and instruction, or they will despise learning. So that's where, and Proverbs talks a lot about that. The wise do this and the foolish do that. There's a lot of contrast between the two. And we're going to see eventually what Solomon says further on in his writings. Let's keep going. This is Proverbs 8. So chapter 1, verse 8 says, it says, hear, my son, your father's instructions, and forsake not your mother's teachings, for they are a graceful garland for your head and a pendant for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say with us, let us lie in wait for blood. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive, and whole like those who go down into the pit. We shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our house with plunder. Throw in your lot among us. We will all have one purse. So he's saying, let's talk about that really quick. This is what he is saying sinners are offering. And to an extent, he's also saying this is what the world is offering. He says, if sinners entice you, this is what they will offer you. This is how they will make their sales pitch. This is how they will try to pull you in, saying, come with us. Let us lie in wait for blood. Let us kill. Let us satisfy our own desires. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. Verse 13 says, we shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. So he's saying that they do these things attempting to get a gain, make money, get success, all these kind of things. But the way in which they go about doing that isn't the godly way. That's why verse 11 says, let us ambush the innocent without reason. This is how the wicked attempts to get their gain. This is how the wicked attempts to get any kind of satisfaction. This is what the wicked think is entertaining or is fun. This is what they think is going to satisfy them. This is something that we can kind of see in our world nowadays, where people kill and rob and do all these things towards other people, for they may not know it, but it's for the simple purpose of them trying to get a gain in an unrighteous or in a godly way. Or some people honestly do it for, I guess you could say, the sake of doing it. Some people think there's a thrill in doing what they do, and they don't know that it is messing with their own lives. So I'm going to keep reading for a second because it's going to explain that. Let's go back up to 13. It says, we shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us. We will all have one purse. Verse 15, my son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your feet from their path. For their feet run to do evil, and they make haste to shed blood. For in vain a net is spread in the sight of any bird. But these men lie in wait for their own blood. They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessor. So, that's what I was saying. All these things that the wicked do that they think is for their gain is really setting up their own demise. That's why he says in 18, these men lie in wait for their own blood. When he said, so like 11, he says, let us lie in wait for blood. This is what the sinner thinks they're doing. They think they're going to ambush somebody, take somebody else's stuff, get gain through that means. But what they are really doing is having what they do get flipped around back onto them. And now they are going to suffer the outcome that they are trying to inflict on somebody else. This is what Solomon is saying that the wicked do in their gain for greedy wealth by these means. That whatever they do to other people to try to get this gain is actually going to come back onto them. And he is telling his son, do not walk in that way because that's what's going to happen. It may sound enticing. Let us do this to gain money or gain success or gain popularity or whatever it is. But really, whatever they do to go forth and do that is going to get flipped back onto them. And they are going to suffer the same outcome that they inflict on somebody else. So if they steal from somebody, what they stolen is going to get stolen from them. If they kill for a gain, then they are going to potentially be killed by somebody else when they attempt to do a gain. This is what he's saying. He's saying that it all comes back around, whatever it is that the wicked do. And in some cases, it's a similar effect when we act in a righteous way, when we go about doing righteous things or seek to make a gain in a righteous way or seek to make relationships in a righteous way. That righteousness comes back around on us and we get blessed, and the things we attempt to set up, whether they're relationships or businesses or try to pursue an opportunity, if we pursue those things in a righteous way, then it also comes back around and we receive the benefits from God for that righteous action or the righteous mindset we took to attempt whatever gain we were attempting to get, whether it's at a job or a relationship or school or anything that we may do in life. If we do it in the righteous way that God has told us to do it, then we will reap the righteous reward for that. But if we go about doing it in the wicked way against God, then the only thing we can get back from it is a wicked response. So let's keep reading to verse 20. It says, wisdom cries aloud in the streets. In the market, she raises her voice. At the heads of the noisy street, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gate, she speaks. How long, simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you, because I have called and you refuse to listen. I stretch out my hand and no one has heeded, because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof. I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you, when terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind. Then when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call upon me, and I will not answer them. They will seek diligently for me, but will not find me. So let's talk about that one a little bit. So let's go back to 20. It says, wisdom cries aloud in the streets. In the market, she raises her voice. So there's going to be an opportunity for us to gain wisdom. Wisdom is not some kind of gatekeeping, if you know kind of thing. Wisdom is going to always be open and available for us to receive and to gain and to find. And it's not going to be overly difficult to find wisdom. Sometimes the things we go through to gain wisdom may be hard, but there's always going to be a source of wisdom somewhere near us or not far from us, or the path to that wisdom is going to, at least the beginning part, will be made known to us. That's why Solomon wrote, wisdom cries aloud in the streets. It cries aloud in the streets to make itself known. I'm over here. If you want me, come over here. And then it says, at the heads of noisy streets, she cries. At the entrance of the city gate, she speaks. So it's basically saying that there is a lot of opportunities and a lot of places to seek out and gain wisdom. But wisdom also is seeking us out. When it says in verse 22, how long, simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? So it's basically saying that wisdom is like that God's wisdom is here and available to help us. And wisdom is also saying that we know the outcome of the lack of wisdom. That's why he says, simple ones, how long you love being simple. He's saying that they already aware of the fact that they are simple without wisdom, which may not initially be a bad thing, but when wisdom is available, it ups our level of thinking, it ups our level of discernment, it ups our sensitivity to the world around us, to how we can move, how we can talk, the decisions we should or should not make. All these things are now amplified because we have a deeper and better way of knowing how to apply knowledge and apply understanding. That's what wisdom essentially is. It's knowing how to apply knowledge, and it's knowing how to apply understanding that we gain from God or from life's experiences. So the ability to apply what we know and have learned in a correct manner is pretty much out here saying, how long are we going to act like we don't know how to apply it? Or how long are we going to avoid gaining the ability to apply this wisdom and knowledge? Does that make sense? It's saying that there is opportunity to gain wisdom, to gain the ability to apply understanding and to apply knowledge in a correct and righteous way. And we don't take it because we like the simple ways and we like things being easier for us than they need to be. And we don't like to be challenged in a way that can up our understanding or up our thinking. And then it says, how long will scoffers delight in their scoffing? Which is, how long are people going to like to talk about, or I guess you could say, how long are people going to brag about the dumb things that they do when there is a possibility to overcome it? It's not like they are bragging about their foolishness or their dumb decisions or anything like that and have no opportunity at all to correct it. There is an opportunity to correct it. There is an opportunity to gain an understanding so that when new choices and new opportunities show up, they can correctly make the decisions that they need to make. But they choose to not do that or to not gain the applied knowledge to help in these situations. That's why Solomon wrote, how long will you keep scoffing? How long will you keep talking about you don't need this and you don't need that? But when situations come up and you don't have this wisdom, you fumble and you mess up and you do not gain any benefit and you potentially gain harm and get set back because you chose not to accept the wisdom that God has tried to offer and that God has made available. When he says that wisdom cries aloud in the streets, that's God creating the opportunity for us to gain wisdom. And then we, for whatever reason, don't go for it. We think that wisdom is too far above us. That's why he says, how long will the simple ones be simple? And we think that we are too good for that wisdom. That's why he says, how long will the scoffers keep scoffing and fools hate knowledge? Because people do that. People have a weird reason of thinking that certain things are above, certain things that are better than, so they don't need this knowledge or that knowledge, or they don't need God, or they don't need the Bible, or they don't need the wisdom that people are offering to them because for whatever reason they think they are above that. But when God has offered wisdom for us, it is always for our benefit. Again, wisdom is the ability to know how to apply the knowledge and the understanding that God gives us. And when we have that, now we can navigate the different scenarios and different situations that we may find ourselves in, but we may be able to navigate the opportunities that God has given us that can turn into a blessing, because some situations God is going to create a scenario that will lead or produce a blessing. But if we do not have his wisdom, if we haven't sought out his wisdom before the opportunity arises, we will miss that and we will fumble that and we will not have it be what God intended it to be, because we have lacked or that we did not accept his wisdom prior to these opportunities showing up. Now let's keep reading. This is verse 23. If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. So basically, like I said, when wisdom is available, when wisdom is presented to us, if we accept it, which is what he means when he says, if you turn at my reproof, if we accept it, if we take the correction that wisdom offers, because wisdom will look at our current situation and sometimes call us out, and it sometimes may not be fun, and it may be a little difficult to hear, and it may be a hard thing to swallow, but it's not in a condemning or overly negative way, or the negative feeling that you feel is not a long-lasting one. It may be a short-term one, but it's not a long-lasting one, because it will call you out of that and up to a better spot that God wants you to be in. If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. So if we take that correction, if we apply it, if we deal with the temporary discomfort and push forward to act in the way the correction comes, then God says he will pour out his spirit on us and it will make his words known to us. This is what happens when we hear God's wisdom and we take it and we let it correct our lives. And then God pours out his spirit, and then his words are now known to us, and his guidance and his direction is now known to us. 24 says, because I have called and you refuse to listen, have stretched out my hand and no one heeded, because you ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. So let's sum up everything we've read so far. God is saying that he has made wisdom available to us for the different scenarios that we may face in our lives, and he has made it available to us before we get into these situations. And if we accept it, then he will pour out his spirit. He will make his words known to us, and then we can be led in his wisdom pertaining to whatever scenario we are in. But if we don't do that, he says he will laugh at our calamity and mock when terror strikes. So that is a difficult thing to hear, to think that when God presents wisdom and we don't accept it, and then we get into a negative and harsh spot because we did not accept the wisdom that God had made available. It is a hard thing to hear that he may mock us, he won't turn from us, but there would be a price or a consequence to pay for not heeding to God's wisdom when it was made available to us. That's what I think he's saying. There's a consequence to not heeding his wisdom when it has been made available to us, because I think regardless of if we accept it or not, there's going to be a trouble and there's going to be a hard time that comes regardless of if we accept his wisdom or not. But if we accept his wisdom when the hard times comes, we are able to know what to do. We are able to make the right decisions. We are able to discern correctly. We are able to do all these things to get the best outcome from this and to glorify God in this. But if we do not listen to his wisdom, and then I think this is the key thing, when we don't listen to God's wisdom and then issues and problems show up, and then we try to seek God for his wisdom now, being like that, I should have did this or I should have did that, and now attempting to apply something that he has told us before trouble comes and trying to apply it after trouble comes and it does not work. It is kind of a distressing thing to hear that God says things like, when terror strikes you, or let's go back up. He says, I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. I'm about to read verse 28. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel and despise all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their ways and have filled of their own devices. For the simple are killed by turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. So, what's the verse here? And 28 is the real start of this. When they call upon me, I will not answer. When they seek me diligently, but will not find me. And here's why. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. So what God is saying in this passage, basically, he has made his wisdom, his knowledge, his correction, his reproof, all this available ahead of time before calamity and disaster and things like that strike. He has made this available ahead of time because he knew that it was going to come and it was going to strike people. It was going to strike us in our own lives. It was going to strike the people around us, and we would be affected by it, all these things. And he has attempted to make his wisdom, the answers that we seek, all of these things, he has attempted to make them available ahead of time and make them available possibly in smaller portions in a way that we probably wouldn't have understood in that moment without the negative situations happening, but he still made them available in any portion that he did before these things happened. And some people did not choose them. So that when they did not choose them and situations happen, and now they're negative situations, now they're in a tough spot, now they're in trouble and all these kind of things. And then they attempt to seek God for what they should do, or they attempt to seek God for what he had made available before calamity happened. Now God is saying that he will not answer them. They will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. And the reason why now, if they seek diligently but don't find him, is because before, in verse 20, when it says wisdom cries aloud in the streets, that's making it readily available to get the wisdom and the help and the discernment or any other part that we needed before issues happened. And then 23 said, if you would turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. So he's saying that he had wisdom available and he had reproof available. He had correction available. And he said, if you would turn to that and give into it, yield to it, and follow whatever it is it led you into, he would pour out his spirit on you for when disaster and calamity and every other thing happened. But since people don't do that, now it's how verse 29 says, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. So this is a choice. God will always make it available. He's going to give it if we accept it, but we have the choice to accept it or deny it. But I think in either case, whether we accept it or deny it, the terror, the calamity, and the disaster and the anguish, they will all still come whether we accept his correction and wisdom or not. And the difference is when we do accept it, we now know what to do because we have God on our side. We have his wisdom given to us. And now we have the relationship, the connection with him to diligently seek for his wisdom and for his understanding and for his correction because we have accepted that before issues happen. But if we don't do that and we wait until after issues happen, if we see the opportunity to gain wisdom, to repent, to accept Christ, to do all of these things before issues come up, and we don't do that, it is a little hard to hear that God says things like, they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. It is a little difficult to hear that, but it is because he has already made the opportunity to do that available before problems happen, and we did not take that. So I think that's an interesting part of Proverbs chapter 1. Solomon is basically saying that we have the opportunity to avoid issues by seeking God's wisdom before issues come up, so that when issues come up, we will now know what to do. But sometimes we don't. And sometimes people choose not to take that wisdom and that knowledge. And it's not because it's not available. It is. People just choose not to take it. But regardless of if they choose to take it or not, issues and disasters and everything like that are still going to happen regardless of if we have God's wisdom or not. But if we don't have God's wisdom, then again, it's going to be a hard thing to hear what verse 29 says, that we will call on him and he will not answer, that we will seek diligently and will not find him, because they hated the knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. If we do choose the fear of the Lord, and if we do choose to accept his knowledge when it is available, then when we go seeking for him, we will find him. There are verses that say that if we search with him with our whole heart, that we will find him and he will find us. And again, it's so we draw near to God, he draws near to us. But if he draws near to us and we don't draw near to God, then when stuff happens, now God is like, I already made it available and you did not take it then. So now it may either be too late or it may be harder to gain this wisdom and this correction that God has for us. He may allow us to go through the negative situations that he tried to prepare us for, but now we have to suffer going through what we are going to have to go through without his knowledge. And he may give us opportunity to repent and accept it, but there's still going to be some level of dealing with things without him. I'm going to keep reading verse 30. Let's go back up to verse 29. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my reproof and despise all my counsel. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own ways and have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. So he's saying, again, that we are going to have to suffer the outcomes of whatever our decisions were without the knowledge of God or without the wisdom of God. And even if we later on accept his wisdom or his knowledge, we will still have to deal with the outcomes of the decisions we made without seeking God. Let's keep going. Verse 33. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. The interesting thing here, it says without the dread of the disaster. It doesn't say without disaster as a whole. So even if we listen to God's wisdom and we take heed to whatever he says, we will dwell securely, but it does not entirely stop every disaster. And again, the difference is that now that we are secure in God, we have listened to his wisdom and his knowledge, and we have this relationship with God, because that's what his wisdom, when it cries out, that's what it attempts to do as well. It attempts to give us a stronger relationship with God through his wisdom, through the spirit of his wisdom. And now that we have listened to that and have done what we could to yield to that and to conform to that and to follow that, now we have this relationship with God so that we can dwell securely and be at ease without dread of disaster. And we are without the dread of disaster because even though a disaster may still come, now, like I said, we will have wisdom, discernment, instruction, and we will have a connection with God to gain that pertaining to our individual situations. So we may have, like, if you want to call it, a general scope of wisdom and discernment that we all would need for, the everyday lives that we live on this earth. But then when we have a connection and a relationship with God, we can gain the wisdom and discernment for our specific situations and our specific needs. I'm going to go to, that just made me think of something over in John, the Gospel of John. I'm going to see if I can find it really quick, where Jesus talks about if we stay in him, then he will stay in us. Okay, here it is. This is in John 15 and verse 4 that says, Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. So Jesus is saying here that if we stay in him and he will stay in us, and then we are able to bear whatever fruit that we can bear, because now we are in him, connected to him, because he is the root of everything. He says in verse 5, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. So this all goes back to yielding to the wisdom that Proverbs says cries out in the streets. And that wisdom is from God. And again, God and Jesus are one and the same. So when Christ is saying here that if we abide in him, he will abide in us. And apart from him, we can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, which also supports what Proverbs was saying when it says that, let me go back to it, when it says that they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will diligently seek me and will not find me. And then it says, let's go back up a bit to 26. I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. So Jesus says if we abide in him, he will abide in us. And apart from him, we can do nothing. And then Proverbs talks about the call of wisdom that it cries aloud in the streets. And again, this wisdom is from God, and Jesus and God are the same exact being. So if we abide in God's wisdom, he will abide in us. And then when calamity does come and things do happen, we will be secure without dread of disaster, because now we have been abiding in him and he is living in us. So that's what abiding means. We live in Christ and Christ will live in us. And then when disaster and calamity happens, we will now be able to navigate it correctly because we have the wisdom of God abiding in us, because we have God himself in us. So I think that's where we're going to stop today. I thank you guys for listening. I hope this was instructive. I hope this was informative. And I hope that you guys can keep on leaning on God, keep staying in Christ, keep seeking his wisdom, keep crying out for his instruction. And if you get it, I pray that you can follow it. And if it is difficult, then I suggest praying for the wisdom and the grace to be able to do whatever it is that he has given you guys. So I thank you. I bless you. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.